Conversations, and welcome to week 5 of history, cycle 3. And this week's statement, tell me about George Washington. Who knows George Washington? George Washington. Okay, first we're going to say it and repeat it. In 1789, in New York, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities, see I had to separate that word, responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution. Okay, tell me about George Washington. In 1789 in New York, we'll read it together, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution.
In 1789 in New York, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution. In
1789 in New York, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution. And so for this one, we're going to do some hand motions. The hand motions are going to be our sign again for 17. Now remember, 6, 7 is our sign for sign language. So 17 is when we flick our hand to the front a little bit. So it's going to be 17. So in 1789, okay? This is 6, 7, 8, 9. So in 1789, or in New York, our ASL sign language for N and Y for New York. George Washington, here's the hair that goes up like this. We're going to do George Washington. Okay, we're going to do our hair. George Washington was granted the full powers. We're just going to make some muscles. The full powers. Okay. And responsibility, we're going to point to our muscle, of the presidency. We're going to put our hand over our heart. Now we're going to take our right hand and form a C for the U.S. Constitution and tap it on our left hand twice, okay? Or more like this. Okay? By the U.S. Constitution in 1789 in New York, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution. Okay? In 1789 in New York, George Washington was granted the full powers and responsibilities of the presidency by the U.S. Constitution.